So welcome back to TNTV, where you're with the relationship couple, of which I'm half, Tony V, and the amazing, beautiful, incredibly worldly Nikki V is the other half. And this week we have a special video because it's part of what we call a mini-series. There are 4 videos in this mini-series, and we have entitled them Love, Sex and Intimacy. Now, if you can count, you're going to go, okay, Love, Sex and Intimacy is only 3 videos. Well, on the 4th video, it's what we call the mystery video. And you won't be wanting to miss that because it's absolutely the hottest one of all. So, first off, we're going to be talking this week about love, probably the most misunderstood 4-lettered word on the planet. And so we're going to have some fun talking about that so you get a real sense of what this really is, because we very glibly say, I love you. And how would it be? It doesn't actually mean that.
That's right. So yes, welcome back. And if this is the first time you've listened to us, as Tony said, we're Tony and Nikki V. We have been taking care, assisting, supporting people, men and women, in their intimate relationships for eons now, nearly 11 years now. And one of the things that we have seen so many times, and which is why this video series is definitely for you, is we've seen couples not know where to turn. They get themselves into a situation where their communication is poor, they're not getting on, and the biggest cost is that they actually then lose all that loving and all that intimacy, which is what their biggest thing, what's their biggest need as a man or a woman, is to absolutely have that intimacy between us. So that's why we believe this video series is so important. And I was with a lovely lady this week whose relationship is literally falling apart. And you know, she's talking to me, he won't speak to her about it. And the thing that's happened, what she said is, we haven't had any intimacy for months and months and months and months. And she said, if we do ever get even kind of close together in bed, we find that we're just not communicating in that way either. So we think this video series is really important for that reason. And as Tony says, the first one is about love. And I agree with you, Tone. It's so misunderstood. We have so many letters and emails each week basically saying, look, you know, my partner either doesn't want to be with me, or they've found somebody else, or she's like, you know, more busy with her work or more busy with the children, and the disconnection is huge. And then they say, but I love this person and I can't live without them, or I want to be with them for the rest of my life. And that's what we want to really explain today, how that is never going to get you the relationship that you want.
Yeah, so one thing that we need to do, I guess, if we're going to have a successful relationship, is have the same meaning to the word love. Now, the word love, as I said at the beginning, and Nikki's shared, is a very interesting word because it seems to mean different things to different people. And it's not the only word where that's the case. But look, one thing I learned, and this has been the best analogy for me on this subject, is that we studied with a guy, a doctor, in fact, in America called Dr. Robert Young. Now, he doesn't talk anything about relationships, but the analogy that he used blew us away, and we've used it many, many times. So what he says is that the body creates feelings. Yeah, we all know that. You know, I feel this, or I feel that, you know. And one of the things, because he's massively into health, he says that humans have come to a point in the 21st century where they are misconstruing or mislabeling the messages their body is sending to them, and then they behave and take actions based on a misconception of that emotion, should we call it, yeah, or that feeling, yeah. So in his world, he says, look, the number one reason there is obesity all around the world, but particularly in America, is because we are misconstruing the message that comes through our body that says, I'm hungry. Now, what he says is that message where we go, well, I fancy a biscuit, or I fancy a piece of cake, or I fancy a cup of coffee, or I'm hungry. That message is being completely misconstrued because he says that message means I'm thirsty. So we've got it round the wrong way. Instead of saying I'm thirsty, we're saying I'm hungry. So is it possible that the word love, or the emotionality around the word love, is also being misconstrued in the same way? And our belief is, from what we've seen in the last 10 plus years, is that's absolutely the case.
Yeah, because what we're saying, what often we're hearing, is that this person is saying, I want to be with this person, or I want this person to be with me so much because I love them. And actually, one of the things that I found interesting was I came across a different philosophy on love, which is that actually it takes two people to have what we call a loving relationships. And you might say to yourself, well, isn't that obvious? But no, I mean, many times we hear couples or individual men and women saying, but I feel this need for this person, which they label as love. When in actual fact, it's not. Often it can be, or sometimes it can be lust. Often it can be just attachment, or sometimes it can be addiction. And those are, you know, I understand very strong words. I mean, lust, addiction, and attachment. But because we misconstrue this feeling and we call it love, we get extremely obsessive, actually, another very powerful word, towards the other person, which if that person doesn't feel the same, can actually be the biggest thing that moves them away from you.
Indeed. So understanding that it's not those things. So when you think to yourself, I mean, you could do this like right now and go, okay, let me think about my partner right now. And what is this thing that I call love that is between us? Yeah. And then go, okay, so is that really love? You know, just question it. Go, so is that love? And if it is, what is it? You know, because it is an interesting experience, the human experience of love. Well, the first thing I think we can share is that where the misconstrued energy comes from, that's probably not the right English, but anyway, where the misconception comes from, is that love does not lay outside of you. It does not lay outside of you at all. In other words, love is an internal thing. I mean, look, you've heard all the past masters say love is on the inside, not on the outside. But look, could the misconception be that we're trying to get love from outside of us, which means we're trying to get somebody to love us? And that could be anyone from, like, when you were a child, you're trying to get your parents to love you if you felt they didn't. You know what that feeling is. And this sort of experience of not love, based on the fact that we need to get it from outside of us, is a challenge, because if you felt that as a child, you'd definitely be doing that with your partner, where you're trying to get them to love you. So actually the interesting thing we sort of came across once is when you say the words I love you, you really have to check in and say to yourself, am I really saying, do you love me? You know, are you really trying to get them to say I love you back so that you feel good about yourself? So this is where the misconception starts. It's like external, it's outside of yourself, and it's you trying to get love from another human being. And that can be your children, your parents, your partner, your friends, your family generally. If you are doing that, just notice that. And look, don't beat yourself up, because trust me, 96% of the population of the planet don't know that at all. And they keep trying to get the love. But ultimately, the most painful part of that is when somebody withdraws or withholds their love, you're left in this sort of weird feeling inside of you that actually we have a desire then to connect back with them, which makes us say the words, I love you. But that is not what love is at all.
Absolutely. And I remember, just as you were saying that, I'm thinking to myself, oh God, I can really recognise how I, in my previous relationships and previous lives, you know, definitely was trying to get all the time, and definitely was saying, but I love this person, I love them, they're the only one for me, kind of thing, and I have to make this work. And so what Tony and I very early on in our, you know, in our relationship, before we started sharing with other people, we actually kind of recognised this somehow, and recognised that it starts within. And you know, many times when we're working with single people, we talk to them about getting themselves, both men and women, into a loving space within themselves, so that actually when they are with someone else, when they connect with a new relationship, that they're only connecting with someone who was also full of love, and then a relationship comes about by them sharing that love. So we often say to each other, I love you. We do say I love you, but I love the sharing of our love. I love that. I love sharing my love with you and giving of love. And so you might be saying to me, yeah, but that's okay for somebody who's single. So what we want to say to you as somebody in a relationship, is actually there's no need to do anything different in terms of your partner, the man or the woman. The work to be done, if you can call it work, is on yourself.
Yes.
And asking yourself right now, let me be honest with myself. Have I in the past been trying to get from this other person? Have I been addicted? Have I been attached to this other person? And actually, maybe if I was more looking inside myself and being in a loving space, which I know is a bit out there, but being in a loving space inside of myself, could that energy, because it's always going to be about energy, could that energy be the very thing that brings us together in a loving connection? So it wouldn't matter whether you're, at a 0 out of 10, or a 1 out of 10, as this lady was that I spoke to this week, who was just saying, we're so disconnected. I'm a 1 out of 10. And I asked her the question, I said, if you could guess what your husband would think about the relationship on a scale of 0 to 10, 0 being, absolutely dreadful and 10 is blissful. She said, oh, he'd be like a -1. And I said, so could you imagine if you could just take some time inside of yourself, working on your own energy, how all of a sudden, and maybe Rome wasn't built in a day, but all of a sudden you started to connect more. And just even talking about it and talking about him in a different, more loving space, things started to heal. You could almost feel it.
Indeed. So, this does raise the question, a very good question, which is something we're asked a lot, which is, well, how do you do that then? How do you create love inside of yourself? Is there a strategy? Is there a trick? Us, we're not really strategy people, but in this particular instance, there is a way to view this that can be very useful. And that is to look at your feelings, your emotions as your chemistry. Imagine, for example, you're like a chemistry set. So now let's just name 3 feelings, emotions, whatever you want to call them, and see if you can sense or tell there are a different feeling or a different set of chemistry that you make for those 3 feelings. So the first one, let's go for what we've already talked about, lust. So have you ever experienced the experience of lust in your body? Well, just notice what that feels like. Now, in seconds, if you've been lustful, you should be able to go there and notice there is a certain feeling about the word lust. So then go to the word attachment or needy. If you've ever been needy in any way or felt attached, let's just go there. And just notice, if you've ever been attached to somebody, notice how that's a different feeling to the feeling of lust. Now, all that means is you've set off a different set of chemicals and hormones in your body. And believe it or not, you can become in control of these. So for the most part, people do not know that they can be in control of their chemistry. They think that other people set it off and that then that's like their fault. You made me feel that way. Well, they didn't really, because they didn't come along and inject you with that chemistry. Somehow your mind, your thought patterns created that experience, which of course they're negative generally, so you don't want to be associated with anything negative, so it's easy then to blame it on someone else. So now let's just go to the feeling of love. So now the truth is you can make the chemistry of love, but there is a trick in making the chemistry of love, which we could share right now.
Absolutely.
So the way that we learnt this is off of an amazing set of doctors in California who created what's known as HeartMath. They don't say maths in America, they all say math. So HeartMath, and you can look them up, they're an amazing set of people. And what they taught us, which we've taught for 10 plus years now, is a way to connect yourself, your chemistry, so to speak, to what love truly is. And you do that by connecting your heart space and your brain together as one. So often when we're just thinking, it's like we're just in our head, we're thinking. So if we think about lust, we create the experience of lust if we've been there before. If we create the feeling of needy, we go to our head, we look back to our memory and go, right, I can create that feeling. You can do it with almost any feeling that you want. But to create the experience of love, there's an inner connection that needs to be made that most people have no clue about. And that connection is between your heart and your brain. So what they argue is that when you're just in your head thinking lustful thoughts or being needy, then what you're doing is you're cutting off your heart from your brain, and ultimately your brain starts to go 10 to the dozen, and you tend to fill your body with what we call the fight and flight chemicals of adrenaline and cortisol. Now, as soon as you've got those in your body, then you behave and act in a completely different way than if you bring your heart into play. Now, it's no surprise, is it, that we use our heart, you know, Valentine's Day, we use the shape of a heart. I don't know why we use that shape. Your heart's not like that at all. But anyway, we use this sort of a heart shape to sort of, you know, signify love. But for most part, people are in their head thinking of the word love, and that is then an external experience. So to go inside yourself, you have to connect your heart and your brain together. And what you do is you get them in, well, they call it incoherence. I sort of use it, they're like in sync. It's like they're talking to each other in a amazing way. Whereas when you're just in your head, it's like your heart's just pumping blood around your body and it's cut off. But if that's where your love lives, in this part of us, it needs to be connected to the brain to give you the experience of love. So you have to practice, and certainly it's something that I know that I can do, I know that Nikki does, and that once we have activated that part of us, this is what love truly is. So you're certain then that the chemicals that are in your body are the same as the chemicals that are in the other person's body, and it's that experience that brings you together as one and gives you an amazing relationship.
And the miracle of it, and that's an extreme word to use, but the miracle of it is if you are disconnected and you use this technique that Tony's just going to share with you, you actually get into a more loving space inside of yourself that actually the miracle of it, the magic of it, is it will impact upon your partner.
Oh, massive.
And that actually, unless they are determined to stay not in a good experience, which is, you know, one can only do one's best, right? Is actually, though, if somebody's open, say like if Tony and I are not, you know, in good connection and I decide to go inside myself and he's open to that kind of energy, then the sort of the any disconnection dissipates.
Oh, very
and
fast.
we start to connect, not just at a head level, which we go, okay, you know, we forgive each other, if you know what I mean, or we make it up, as they would say. We actually are starting to connect at a heart level, and it really is a miracle, and it will dissipate and it will dilute and dissolve so many non-love, other than love, what love is not, as they say, energy that we have, that we build up inside of our bodies.
Indeed, and if you've never watched the film or read the book Celestine Prophecy, that is
Yes.
definitely worth a check-in. I'd check in with the film really, because although it's a B-rated movie, the special effects would be considered today to be a bit naff. Actually, they show very, very well this fact that we are in control of our chemistry, and when we do that, it's like we have this auric field that changes in colour and shade, and it shows it so brilliantly in the film. When a guy particularly moves towards this girl, his auric field is red and hers is green, so there's like these two things don't connect because they're different. And he had to learn throughout the film to, you know, get his aura to be...
Basically he's walking along in this lovely, what we would call, if you know our work, kind of green energy, and they actually show it as like an aura around him, and he sees this woman sitting quietly reading a book, and she has this green energy, and then obviously something stirs in him, some old lust or whatever that we want to call it, and he walks over to her, and as he starts to talk to her, you can see that his energy changes to trying to get from her, and so there his aura turns more red colour, and you can see her move away.
Absolutely.
And you can see actually that in the film she stays very green, but in reality, in life, what happens is a woman will go into kind of fear, and she will go into a space, or she will also go into red energy, and they will come together from that kind of lustful, you know, neediness of each other, rather than from a green, as we would call it, space of love.
Indeed, in the film, of course, she's quite an advanced person. He's just like a beginner. In other words, she's been doing this and finding this space within herself a lot. So she just naturally moved away from him. It's brilliant. So Celestine Prophecy, the movie, book it out on Amazon and watch that. And it really gives you a good insight into what the disconnect could be about for you guys, if indeed you're not. A 10 out of 10. on love, sex and intimacy. So I guess I should tell you what
I was just going
the
to say,
magic trick is, and not
I thought I was
leave you,
thinking then, well, I wonder if you forgot.
leave you hanging in midair. How do you become in control of your chemistry? Well, I'm going to leave you to HeartMath. You know, they have this gadget which you can plug yourself into. We've been using it, demonstrating it. I know we use it at our events. We've demonstrated it to people. They're blown away by the fact that they can start to become in control of their inner world, and all their things like worry and anxiety and depression even can all move away as you learn to be in control of your chemistry. But look, if I gave you the fast trick to change your chemistry so that you become in control of it rather than it being in control of you.
And you become in a loving space very quickly.
Indeed. And of course both of you do this, you'll notice it's like it is a magic or a miracle, you could say either, when you do this. Now, you just do it with breathing. You know, they say, you know, your breath is, you have no life without breath. It's the first thing we do when we are born, and it's the last thing we do when we die, is take breath. So oxygen is vital to the human being. And what we're tending to do is not breathe properly. But the HeartMath people, just not to bore you, teach you this breathing technique. And it basically, you do it like this. You breathe in your mouth. And as you do that, you can feel there's like a coolness going down your windpipe. And what you do is you put your attention to the fact that you can feel it going into your heart area. So as you breathe in, you can feel it going down your throat, and then it goes into this heart area. And you put attention to the feeling in your heart. And then you breathe it back out again. So basically you're breathing in and out your mouth. I mean, I know I've only got a thin kit nowadays. I'm so trained, and that feeling is there in my body. And this is the chemistry of love. It's in my body right now. I can feel it, and all I've done is thought about it and taken one breath. So when you've never done it before, you need to maybe do it for 2 or 3 minutes. Yeah, 2 or 3 minutes. And if you do it together, if you can do it together, and then just look each other in the eye, because when you're disconnected, you'll notice how you don't look at each other, you rant away, and you don't even look at each other. But if you do this together, I guarantee your auras will become as one, and that is what true love is. So we've probably gone on longer than we intended, but I trust that's you know, the first part of this 4-part mini-series, a lesson on what the word love truly means in the shortest time we could possibly do it.
So I really urge you to do that today, to get in more connection.
Indeed, and obviously we've had the pleasure of sharing each other's love, because what you're doing is, once you've got in that place, you can share that with somebody else who's doing exactly the same. That's what love really is. So from me and my amazing, loving, gorgeous wife, Nikki V, we're going to be back with part 2, which you won't want to miss, because it's all about sex. So we'll see you then. Bye for now.